What is up, my brothers and sisters, my agents of respect? It's your boy Trey Johnson back with another episode of the No Disrespect But podcast. And on today's episode, we will be discussing the New Orleans Pelicans. Yeah, you heard that right. The New Orleans Pelicans. Now, I know I'm the resident San Antonio Spurs fans, and I may not be the one to talk best about this topic. That's what you're probably saying. And guess what? I agree with you. And so I extended an open invitation to Pelicans Nation just after the way their season ended and said, hey, man, anybody want to talk about how do we get here? How do we start? How do we end? What happened in between? What are some things moving forward that we got to think about? And just my luck, one of the best on Pels Twitter uh, accepted that invitation and is going to be gracing us with his presence today. And I say he's one of the best, man, because, when it comes to fandom and fan accounts, there's a lot of trolling going on. There's a lot of hot takes going on. But this guy, man, he'll give it to you straight and he'll just tell you from his experience, this is what he sees, this is what he thinks is happening. And that's what it is. My man not about to be arguing with you on that Twitter. He got too much to do in his life, busy man. So man, when I say this guy is royalty, especially Southeastern men's basketball royalty, let me see if I got it right. 4-year letter winner, 2 conference titles, including a berth, which if I believe that's the last time. I don't know if it was the first time we went, but I know it's the last time we've been since. In '05, got our men's basketball team to the NCAA tournament. We could have won, but they was hating on us. That's all that was. But also, man, come on, brings almost a decade of coaching experience at the collegiate level, at every level, talking JUCO, NAIA, D1, D2, you name it. Currently running the Film Don't Lie Hoops, man, where he works with some draft eligible players in college, kind of scouting their game, letting us know exactly what they bring to the table and maybe some things that need to improve on. And man, he also is responsible for creating that next generation of hoopers every rep at a time, man. When I say he teaches those kids things that are going to translate to games, I see it on film, man, and I see what those kids do, and then he's able to show how it happens at the next level. When we're talking men's and women's, this guy doesn't discriminate at all levels. He tries to get all the hoopers the knowledge he had. And so help me in welcoming Coach Mike Cyprian. I call him Coach Sip, to the No Disrespect But podcast. Say hi to the folks, Coach.
Well, I don't know. I don't know what I can say to follow that. That's the best. That's the best introduction I've ever got, and I don't know that I deserved all that, but I much appreciate it. That was pretty cool, T. I appreciate it, man. It's good to be here. This conversation has been a long time coming because we always go back and forth, respectfully,
Yeah.
on Twitter. I mean, you're one of the few people I interact with, engage with on there that I if I'm not learning something from them, which I do learn a lot from you, whether I'm engaging with you or not, I at least don't mind your opinion, whether I agree with it or not. So it's always fun, talking to like real hoop heads.
Right.
And I know there's a lot of hoop heads. You don't have to have picked up a basketball and played at a certain level to understand basketball.
Yeah.
You just got to watch it and consume it, have a passion for it, study it, and I just gravitate towards that. Then yeah, man, we played Oklahoma State in 2005 NCAA tournament in Oklahoma City, the same arena that the Oklahoma City Thunder play in. That's the arena that we played in. At the time, it was called the Ford Center, and it was packed. Probably the peak of my basketball playing experience. I was glad to be able to experience that as a player, and then got close a couple times as a coach. I do know that Southeastern about 4 or 5 years ago, maybe 5 or 6 years ago, under Coach Ladner, they
Yeah.
lost in the championship game of the conference tournament, and that was the closest we've gotten since. They played in the NIT, but they didn't make it to the big dance. Um, but yeah, man, we had some great experiences. Um, I've had some great experiences as a player, had some real good ones as a coach. Like you said, I coached all levels of college basketball, from JUCO all the way to D1. Had some highs and some lows, and I just decided to step away from it because my passion within basketball is development, player development. And in my opinion, player development isn't just on the court. It is off the court through film study because I believe that a lot of kids they don't watch the game enough for whatever reason, and they don't have the same passion for it off the court. A lot of them think that okay, well, once I leave the court, it's it, and that's not the case. So film on live kind of is a vessel in that light where a lot of the kids I train they follow me on Instagram and they see me sharing a lot of basketball information, whether it be highlights, breakdowns of NBA guys, college guys, I break down schemes, may break down how players gets to the bucket, break down how players, growing like my latest one I did on Trey Murphy and how he's been playing better. Well, he was playing better before he got eliminated. A lot of the kids take to that too, and a lot of what we work on comes from me watching,
Right.
watching and studying. And so when when we're training, if I'm watching the basketball game that night when I get home and I see a concept that we worked on displayed in the game, I immediately, I'll run up to the TV, rewind it, record it with my phone. My wife comes in and like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "We just worked on that earlier," and I send it to the kids that I'm training. Like, "Yo, this look familiar?" Like, "Yeah, coach, I'm watching that now. I saw such and such do that." So now that's my way of getting them to kind of learn how to watch the game and prepare themselves for the next time we get on the court.
Awesome, man. That's beautiful. And I hope my viewers see, hey, look, like I said, I ain't just getting no average Joe now, man. I got somebody that knows what he's talking about. And speaking of, coach, I mean, I think I might have been a little harsh, coming into the season. Look, I knew the Spurs were tanking, so I was like, well, I don't really need to assess them. I can spend my time kind of getting to look at the beauty of the league, beauty of the game, kind of look at some teams and what better team to look at more so than the New Orleans Pelicans, being from New Orleans, being from Louisiana. Just wanted to see they got two Duke guys. I love them, love that college program. So of course I'm gonna say, hey, let me look at them. But coming into the season, man, they were expected to be a perennial playoff team just based on what they did last year without Zion. It's like you're adding Zion to
Hmm.
this. Then you're adding some of these young guys that are hungry and looking to make a name for themselves. So you're hoping they're going to improve. Coach Green is going to improve in his second year. And man, look, there was some guys in Pels Nations. They were like, man, look, top seed, top 3 seed. We going to the Western Conference Finals. We going to the finals. And so I was like, I don't know, man. Like you got in the play-in last year. You barely beat my Spurs when DeJounte had COVID. But you know what? That's just me being salty there. But I said, let's just give him a break. We don't know Zion. He hasn't yet played a full season yet. Even Bi has some nicks and some cramps every now and then. So let's see how it goes. Well, up until December, that was shutting me up, coach. And top seed, and I mean, they were giving everybody the business. It wasn't like they was just beating on some small tanking teams. Now, some teams that
Yeah,
were going to beat in the playoffs. The Pels were striking the fear of God in them. And now
that's
we're
without Brandon Ingram.
right. And you're right. And Brad Bi was hurt. So that was really kind of a Zion takeover for the most part. And now to be here fall into a non-seed and being eliminated from the play-in and a chance to get a playoff berth. From your perspective, just kind of being able to watch this team all season and kind of being central there, what happened? How did we get here?
Injuries, man, injuries, and to a lot of people are down on Willie Green. A lot of people who I interact with from the Pels 12, and full disclosure, a lot of the people I interact with on Pels 12 are very very knowledgeable, not just about the Pelicans, the team, but
Right.
just the league, basketball in general. And again, that's why I'm selective with who I engage with because I don't do the hot take trolling engagement. I just rather not go back and forth. But a lot of them are
Mhm.
well versed, but a lot of them are down on Coach Green, second year guy. And I always say, name another second year coach that had to coach a 2 full seasons without his best players. Like let's just we compare Coach Green to Greg Popovich. A lot when Greg Popovich was in his second season as a coach, a lot of people who are comparing the two of them probably weren't even born
Right.
or were diapers. So they don't even know what Greg Popovich was as a second year coach. When Steve Kerr took over his second season, he had a fully healthy roster. Like
Right.
like they had survived the Steph Curry injury years, which ironically they didn't know. I don't know how many people were saying, "Yo, get rid of Steph. He can't stay healthy."
It was a
You
lot.
know, segue to Zion. Do you get rid of him or not? But we'll get to that in a little bit. Eric Spoelstra, great basketball mind. In his second season, he had the pleasure of coaching prime LeBron James. Even though Pat Riley was like in the bleachers watching him from right behind the bench. So we comparing Willie to all of these great basketball minds, where a lot of them in their second season didn't weren't without their best players
The best
for
players,
both
right?
for the majority of both of those seasons. Now we're not talking about the full 4 years that Zion's been here, where he played 60 games in the bubble, and I think he played another 60 game another season. I can't remember. I don't know specifically. I'm talking about during Willie Green's tenure,
Right.
him and Brandon Ingram and CJ McCollum, if you want to throw him in, have played less than 10 games together. That right there is the problem. And you can
Right.
talk about rotations, you can talk about who he's playing and substitution patterns, but if you don't know who's going to be in and out of your lineup, and your two max contract guys are going to be out of the lineup all the time, you only work with the scraps you're given. So, and that's not to say that Trey hasn't been great, Herb
Right.
Jones hasn't been great, Jose before he went down hasn't been great. Those dudes, in my opinion, have overachieved considering where they were drafted at. Except Trey, I know Trey was drafted early in the first round, but nobody, I don't know that many people outside of the organization expected Herb and Jose to contribute like they did, considering where they were drafted at. And I know Jose got his shine because Kyra tore an ACL and we traded Satoransky. So it ain't his next man up. You don't know when your number's gonna get called. You just got to be ready for it. So Jose took the bull by the horns and parlayed that into a real good contract for himself. But when you have key guys in your 8-man rotation missing substantial amount of time, then all of a sudden those substitution patterns look a little funny because you got to play guys that you probably weren't even expecting to play late in the season. Trey Murphy went from being not featured at, like, Trey Murphy was probably thought coming into the season he was going to be a catch and shoot spot up guy.
Right.
Bi's going to be healthy, Zion's going to be healthy, CJ's going to be your third option, JV's going to be your fourth option. Maybe you can stagger lineups, and you can bring Trey along slowly. Then all of a sudden Trey takes a big leap. And one season he goes from being, maybe off the bench, first or second off the bench, to a starter, to making this gigantic leap before the season ends.
Right.
That just goes to show you kind of like what this roster look like when you don't have your best players playing substantial time. And you can't take the engine out of a car and expect it to run. Period.
That's true.
Your engine has been your car has been sitting idle without an engine since January, dude. At the end of the day, what do you want the staff to do? And that's not to say that Coach Green and the staff aren't without their flaws. So
Right.
I've always said, like, Coach Green is a second year head coach. He's not without his flaws, but to have the team over 500 in the top 10, top 7 defensively, considering the moving parts, he's done yeoman's work considering. And Trey, we've got here because of injury issues. Period. Nothing. That's stop at injury issues. Period.
Yeah.
When your best players only combined to play less than 90 games, what do you do, Trey?
Right. And I think that's a
That's
fair
where we
point.
at.
That is a fair point. Some people don't understand, man, especially when you try to talk about rotations with what coaches are doing. Well, when you don't have your horses, things change. And like you mentioned, there are guys that are playing roles that coming into the year weren't meant for them to have. But what you want to penalize coaches on substitution patterns and things, can we give them credit for the development that these guys were ready? and over exceeded some of those expectations that look, they may have had higher expectations for themselves, of course. Most individual athletes do, but from the team
Right.
construct, team said this is what they're going to be doing. And they were able to exceed those expectations, especially a guy like Trey Murphy. I'm glad you mentioned him. I mean, you know, being a former shooter myself, I love when shooters get their props, but he's more than that. I mean, he's one of the most athletic
Yep.
players in the league. Participated in a slam dunk competition just to kind of showcase that a little bit. So to your point, man, it's easy to criticize. I did an episode a few weeks ago where we had me talking more so about football, but couch coaches, guys like me that just sit on the couch and we're watching and we're saying, well, this needs to happen, and this needs to happen, and this needs to happen. But knowing good and well, if you were in that seat, it would be totally different. You know, you wouldn't be able to survive without having BI for 37 games. And
Yep.
I only played 24 games this
29.
year, 9 games this year. So you're not surviving that. And you're doing this also with a hobble, so to speak, CJ McCollum as well. So
And Larry Nash down the stretch.
and
Larry Nash got banged up. You know, who knows what those guys were playing with. And Trey, think about this, Trey. You're a San Antonio Spurs fan, so you can play accept the play in. When was the last time since the end of the Duncan, Manu, Tony Parker era were the Spurs considered a threat to win the West?
that was 6 years ago, before Zaza Pachulia happened.
That's so consider that like you had a chance. Even let's just take that serious. You had a chance. You had the Warriors on the ropes,
Right.
and then just like that, your best player is taken away from you. You can't survive that.
Mm-hmm.
You can't. You go into a season. With these expectations,
Right.
and it's just a matter of Zion a burst, hamstring tweak, take it from you like that, and that's in the middle of Bi still being out.
Right.
And now you got Najee Marshall, Trey, CJ. You know, you got a bunch of guys who were expected to kind of like be 8, 9 in your rotation. CJ expected to be he came here to be your third option. JV your fourth option. All of a sudden, those guys, like you said, their roles get boosted, and they're going up against everybody else's max contract guys.
Yes.
They got to play Joel Embiid without Brandon Ingram and Zion. They got to play Harden and Embiid without those guys. You got to play the Timberwolves without those guys. You got to play a fully healthy Grizzlies team without those guys.
Right.
You got to play the Warriors who are slowly starting to get healthy without those guys. You can't. That's murderer's row without your two best players. You're gonna lose a good amount of games in a row. So to go through that, Trey, and then the last 15 games, when I think go 13-2 or 12-3, whatever it was, down the stretch, something like that, to manufacture some wins to put yourself back in it, and that go and along with Bi playing just out of his mind too.
Right.
Again, Bi, you get one of your horses back and he turns it up a level. You can do that, but that ain't had nothing to do with really. That's got a lot to do with just Brandon Ingram playing lights out.
Yeah.
So you can do some things when at least you got one. But when you have two of them not playing for good chunks of the season and then their injuries overlap, you can't salvage anything.
That is true. And speaking of injuries, man, let's talk about the injury to arguably, I mean, most of the consensus is that Zion is the best player, even though if you ask me, I think B.I., I'm a big fan of his. And I just think that's the guy Griff should really start to look to build around. But, you know, as we know, Zion, especially what he was doing this season when he was healthy, just being a dominant force, being considered the best player. And he goes down with a hamstring injury, and 4 months pass by, and we're like, is it coming back? Like, what type of hamstring injury? Like, did he tear it, or is it a strain? Which we were told it was the latter. So it's trying to, as a fan base, and even just a basketball fan base, trying to figure out what's going on with one of the NBA's hottest and top superstars. And if we want to see them, because it's almost money time. This is the time of year where careers are made and defined. And so we're looking to see Zion along with B.I. and CJ kind of make that run. We think they have the team. And then again, yes, we've had players that have played outside their roles, but now that's experience that they can bring where now when they're playing against second units, they're kicking their behinds all over the court because they have that
Yep.
experience over the course of the year. So
Yep.
just kind of let me know what's kind of the temperature on Zion. I think I was a little mean to him over this week, just kind of like as a competitor, it's if you can give me something, can you give it? And I know that's easy for us to say. One thing I think about is a Pat Riley quote where he used to tell players that if you could come to the facility, get dressed in a suit, you can give me 5 minutes. Or otherwise, instead of sitting here next to me where you're not really doing anything from a on-court perspective, go rehab, get better so
To
you can
rehab.
for the next game. So it's like you're seeing, hey, he's physically, apparently reports that he's physically good, Zion is, but mentally he's not there, which um, the league, and I just think life or the world in general, we're starting to try to take more into account mental health and what and people
Right.
are thinking. So especially when you're playing a physical game, and if you're mentally not there, the physical aspect is going to mess yourself up. So we understand that to a degree, but then you're kind of thinking about the time of the year, like, man, can you give us something? And then you're looking at highlights of pre-game, and he's
Yep.
breaking sweat and doing windmills, and then goes to the locker room, probably takes a shower and puts on jeans and a hoodie. Just kind of as a fan, what does that? And as a former, as like an athlete that played at the top of his game, like what kind of goes through your head, and then kind of what are some of the things you see from the fan base on both sides of the spectrum that you'd like to share?
From a fan perspective, it he I saw the video of the warm up he did, and he did it off a drop step, and and you have to like that. That takes a certain. I've never done a windmill ever in my life,
Mm-hmm.
never. Uh, Highest I've ever done, I've gotten a two hand. I put it down with two hands off a lot, but to do a flat, drop step or a flat foot windmill takes a lot of energy, a lot of force. Not as much force as if you do a run and start windmill, obviously, but it still takes a amount of force. So I believe it when he say physically he's okay.
Yeah,
Um, I'm, I think a lot of the fan base that I interact with, um, even whether it be in the group chat or just kind of just watching, because I like I said, I just watch, I scroll. It's kind of half and half. Maybe it might be about 60-40 now, where it was half and half, because AD came into spaces last year when Zion was kind of like off, and he was in Oregon working out, and he wasn't talking to media, and fans were like, "Yo, we talk to us," and AD was like, "You guys, I talked to this young man. He's in a dark place. You have to take into account his mental capacity, and he's young still, and he's had basketball taken away from him." So the fan base was like, "You know what, AD, you right, man. We appreciate the perspective." And now it's like, when AD said that, we didn't have footage of him doing the windmill.
right,
We just knew that Zion was away. So we just like, all right, well, AD's with him, talk to him a lot, talk to Teaspoon a lot. So they can paint the picture of Zion being away, trying to do his best to get back.
right.
But now, fast forward to now, I'm not mentally ready, but I'm gonna go in the warm up and I'm gonna dunk. And yeah, of course he didn't look like Zion, obviously,
Right.
but you can't drop that out, in my opinion. You can't drop
Yeah.
that out because it gives me vibes of last season, where when Griff and Co didn't want to clear him, and remember he did the windmill dunk in the practice
Yeah.
facility to
Right.
try to put pressure on the organization to let him play, so the
Right.
fans could be like, "Yo, let's let Zion play." This is similar in that it's almost, to me, it gives me vibes of, I'm gonna stick it to y'all, because
Right.
Griff said he's not meant to. First, you've been following it, Trey. Chris
Mhm.
Hayes at the Denver game, he looks explosive. He looks this. He looks ready to play from a
Yeah.
source. We don't know who that source was. Then fast forward to Sham saying that Zion's not really ready. We don't he that's not a time where he'll be ready at all,
Mhm.
or anytime soon. I'm sorry. And then
Right.
Griff comes out. Zion is physically ready, but the metrics, he didn't pass the metrics, and mentally he's not there. There's a hesitancy to which
Yeah.
Zion comes back and he says, like, physically I'm good, but I don't want to be out there if I'm hesitant mentally, and I don't want to be a detriment. In so many words.
Yeah.
But then we get You get him in the warm-ups, Duncan doing warm-ups and stuff like that. I mean, Duncan doing windmills. So the fan base is like, so you're not ready? Are y'all ready? You're explosive. You're not explosive. So now everybody's like, bro, if you can be on the court doing this, you can play decoy minutes. Like, what's
Yeah.
good? What are we doing? So that's why I said last year was a little bit more sympathetic of them. This year, considering like the messages and the leaks and
Mhm.
the different stories coming out from different media, and then the video was icing on the cake. Fans are like, come on, man, what are we even doing here? Like, I just what I think is, and you from New Orleans, man. We petty as I don't know what. We tell it like it is. We don't sugarcoat it. Almost
Right.
like Philly in a sense, where we just let it rip.
Yeah.
When fans see that, and especially when you know that, when you combine that with CJ playing with, where he came out with a torn labrum, a thumb that he could have had surgery on 2 months ago and been shut down, but he played through it. Fans are like, yeah, we'll deal with some of CJ's shot selection because we know that he's battling, he's trying to win.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Zion is like, I'm ready to play physically, but I just can't do it. Um, from a fan perspective, it can get a little frustrating because we like,
Mhm.
now we got to go into another offseason not knowing
Yeah.
what's on this guy's brain. He's gonna go on a, you know, go off with his people and say whatever, do whatever, and we got to wait all the way until training camp in October to find out what kind of shape this guy's gonna be in.
Right.
I was listening to a podcast, Trey,
Mhm.
Roger Bell, and he gave a pretty good perspective. He said, as a teammate, we don't know when the guy is not gonna play. Like if you're on the practice court and the guys that's rehabbing not even participating in one-on-ones and three-on-threes throughout the whole week, then
Right.
we're kind of like locked into what we have to do.
Yeah.
And that's a good point too, because as a coach and and obviously at the college level is no comparison,
Mhm.
but at the pro level, NBA level, like at the end of the day, we're co-workers. So if you're
Right.
not playing, I'm getting paid to come hoop. So whether you're in or
Mhm.
out, I can't worry about if you're in or out. I got to come in and do my job regardless. But if I go through a week of practice, 2 weeks of practice, even late in the season, and we're not even practicing full speed. We're just kind of going through walkthroughs and getting some light shooting in, and you're not participating in that. Or the guys at the end of the bench who aren't getting much run that are playing one-on-one and three-on-threes versus the guys that are rehabbing. You're not participating in that. Then the workout on the court, that doesn't mean anything to me because
Right.
I haven't seen you going through much in practice anyway. So I already know that you're not playing. So
Right.
his teammates are probably not saying like, "Yo, man, this dude's a sellout," because again, they've seen him not in practice doing that
Throughout the week.
for a
Yeah.
week. So it is what it is. They like,
Mhm.
all right, well, but then we got to worry about Oklahoma City. We can't worry about what Zion doing in the warm ups.
Right.
We'll just kind of try to manufacture this win and go from there. So from that was a good perspective that Roger Bell gave as a teammate, and that made a lot of
Right.
sense. Where you kind of saw him throughout the whole week. He hadn't practiced, he hadn't participated, he hadn't gone full speed. Why would I expect him to play tonight anyway? Even if he
Right.
did do a windmill. So that
That's
made a lot
true.
of sense.
No, that's a great perspective. I think that. Thank you for sharing that because that does kind of put into perspective that y'all don't know, but we know because we in the building every day. So we already
Hmm.
through the game plan, everything. We already know he's not playing. And you kind of mentioned CJ a little bit and kind of going through what he was going through and kind of swallowing a little bit to make sure that. You can hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yep,
Okay,
yeah. I
good.
got you.
Yeah, got interrupted a little bit, but bad. But um, he wanted to kind of sacrifice maybe something for his own personal benefit for the team a little bit, and that's understandable. But I guess in a way of playing devil's advocate for Zion, post Oklahoma City game, man, people were letting CJ have it, and I'm
Yeah.
just sitting here like, y'all know this man playing with like, have y'all played the game of basketball before? Do you know how hard it is as a person that creates offense, that's a scorer, that you have to wear a wrap on your thumb, which is important in shooting. Now I'm
The
listening. I didn't
shooting
even know
hand.
you had on his shooting hand. I didn't even know you had a torn labrum, so that's even worse. So imagine the pain shooting through you every time you lift to take a jump shot or a layup. And y'all just like, well, but he played, so he should have played better. Well, now I'm like, well, at that point, then I gotta, to some degree, understand what Zion's saying, because if when he says I'm not Zion, I guess in a way he was saying that if I come out here and I give you 10 points on 3 of 13 because I'm just not myself, you're going to be judging me
Yeah.
off of the 27 point per game dominant person. You're not going to look at me and say, oh, well, he fighting through this injury. He giving his teammates what he has, whatever that is. You're going to say, oh, man, he sucked. And he should have, stayed on the sideline or whatever. He was going to do that. And
Yep.
and to that point, I'm like, okay, and I don't think I've said anything bad about Zion since, because I'm like, damn, y'all doing CJ like this. And this is a guy, 10-year vet, that had he decided, hey, I'm gonna go get the surgery, I'm gonna shut it down. Pelicans fans discussing Scoot Henderson and winning. That's
Yep.
really what it is, because you miss Bi, you miss Zion, and as talented as the supporting cast has been in their roles, I don't think they're gonna get you to this same point
No.
if your three guys are missing substantial time. And it's like, man, it's like, oh, well, he was brought in to be this. I'm like, no. He was brought in to be a third option to the young bulls that are Brandon Ingram and Zion Williamson, providing leadership, and then as a perimeter guy, being able to put guys in certain positions when it's closing time. Get Bi in his spot, give Zion his spot when it's crunch time. We trying to go home with a dub. And in a way, his tenure has been a little unfair. If he wanted to be the second option and every now and then having to be the first option to an off-injured superstar, he could have stayed in Portland.
Yep.
And people forget that the Trailblazers gave him a choice of where he wanted to go, and he chose the Pelicans. That's who he
Yep.
wanted to be traded to. And so, even watching the Pelicans, that hasn't been the case in terms of free agency and trade situations where a premier athlete, a guy that has skin in the game, that has been on deep playoff runs, says, I want to go to that team. That doesn't
Yep.
normally happen. So for that guy to choose the organization, one, that's a great thing. But he's been kind of a model citizen, a model teammate since he's been here. And I think, and maybe you can weigh in on this, it's like when he tried to provide that leadership, like over the summer, he was saying, man, just making sure you get your body right, making sure you're not staying
Yep.
up late hours of the night. Like, he's not just talking as a guy, he's talking as a 10-year veteran, somebody that has been to the Western Conference Finals, a place that you're trying to, at the very least, get to, being on a team with expectations. And he's saying, hey, like, these are the things to get that got me to year 10 and that y'all need to invest in. And it's like, oh, let me chuckle, ha ha ha, yoga, whatever it may be. But then you have a stub toe and a hamstring injury that's keeping you out, and now you don't feel like yourself. And it's like, there's still time, but you got to start listening to this guy, because he was brought in for this reason. And so
Yep.
if you're not going to do the things of trying to take that veteran leadership, and you want to be that young superstar that knows it all and wants to do it their way, those guys don't last long in the league. But I like
No.
to on that.
No. And you bring up a good point. I mean, this is the first time CJ's missed the postseason in his whole career.
Mhm.
Um, and for what it's worth, because a lot of people are like, well, the most he's ever done is, made it to the Western Conference Finals, and they got destroyed. Well, that's the peak of what New Orleans has done too. Well,
Yeah.
actually, we didn't get to the Western Conference Finals. We got to the semi,
Yeah.
because I think we lose to the Spurs. I
Yeah.
think we
Yeah.
lost to
Seven
the
games. 7 games on the road.
yeah, we lost to the Spurs, which that was the year CP3 should have got the MVP, but whatever.
Yeah, I
Um,
agree.
uh, we the professionalism that CJ that CJ brings is supposed to rub off on the roster. I just think that the term that goes on within the Pels 12 about the culture, about the roster is vibes. Because those guys are so close to each other.
Mhm.
They get along so well, which you want that type of environment. You want to be able to get along, and because you spend more time with your coworkers. In the NBA, you spend more time with your coworkers than you will with your family.
Right.
I mean, you got CJ who had just had a kid, not sleeping that much because the kid is um, new to parenthood, and I was one of very few that can sympathize with him. Not sleeping with a newborn in the house and still trying to go to work.
Right.
He's battling through that and injury, and I think CJ is one that you have to take into account that look, we're here to get a job done. No matter
Mhm.
what's going on off the court, get the job done. No, everybody at this point in time is banged up. You still
Yeah.
got to be available. When him saying, we got to be available, that's not a slight to Zion or
Right.
Bi. That's just facts.
Yeah.
Period. If you're gonna come into the season with expectations, like winning expectations, your dudes have to be there.
Right.
Period. That's not CJ throwing a shot at Zion. That's CJ saying something that we already know, but he's just giving these guys some nuggets before to take it to the off season. Like Bi said in his interview, like I'm gonna play the game the right way. I'm just gonna get stronger. I'm gonna get stronger to be able to take the beat. Now hopefully Bi in the process of that, as he hits the weight room a little bit more, develops and he can fight through some early season injuries. Now he can play 65 games next season. You hope that Bi saying something like that and CJ saying we got to be available, something like maybe Zion is like, you know what, they right. I got to do my thing. I got to get back so I can be player of the month Zion and
Right.
be available for 60, 65 games. And then we put the league on notice. In my opinion, at some point you can't like I tweeted yesterday, it's time to take the kids' gloves off.
Yeah.
Period. You have expectations, bro. Like if you wanna one thing I heard too was the worst place to be in the NBA is in the middle. Because
Mm.
if you're in the middle, you'll never get a good enough draft pick to boost you up. And you might as well just like essentially tank. So at least you can put yourself
Mm.
in position to get a franchise changing player. Right now, we are in the middle. We've been in the middle for 4 years now, bro.
Yeah.
Like, why should CJ come into a situation and be in the middle? Because he's been not maybe not in the middle, but for the better part of his
But
tenure
very
in Portland,
close. Yeah.
he's never been on a team considered to be a threat to the top.
Right.
So he's like, yo, I'm about to be on the back nine of my career soon. Y'all dudes got to be available. I came out here to play for y'all. Like you said, he said, have you seen that big guy down there? I want to play with Bi. I want to help him max out on what he can be. I want
Right.
to want to turn him into a killer. I want to play next to somebody like Zion. He
Yep.
knows that Zion is a one of one in this league. He even said it when Zion went through that stretch of games where
Mhm.
he was playing like dominant basketball.
Yeah.
They asked him like, what was how did you feel? He compared the play to Michael Jordan. He's like, look, give Zion the ball and get the F out the way.
Right.
CJ wants to be a part of that for more than 10 games. And it's fair. He
Yeah.
has the right to want to demand that because if that's the case, he could have, he's getting paid a pretty good amount of money to be here. But he also came to win. And him
True.
saying what he said and trying to bring some accountability, especially as it pertains to your health and stuff like that. I'm 100% on board. And if you take it personally, then that just means that you're somebody who's not quite ready to take ownership of your craft and
Right.
you still don't have a winning mentality yet. And I think the organization need it. We got to get rid of those not wanting to upset each other vibes. We need
Yeah.
a a-hole in the locker room.
Right.
I think this team needs an a-hole in the locker room more than they think they need, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. And I would say, man, as a Spurs fan, this whole situation, especially when it comes to Zion, is giving me PTSD with the Kawhi situation,
Yeah,
man.
you can relate.
Because it's eerily similar with Kawhi was an uncle with who was more so like a father figure because he lost his father young. And then with Kawhi, I mean with Zion, it's his stepfather, which you always hear. And I don't know how much truth there is to it. Probably is a little bit of truth, a little bit of false and everything,
Right.
as your side, my side, and the truth. So there's a little bit in it somewhere. But it's like, man, like what's going on? And then you got the CJ who's playing the Tony Parker of saying, you just got to be available. And, I dealt with my share of injuries and I was here for the team. And People think it's a shot, but like you say, sometimes this is a fact. It's like, what's going on? And I can't be in your head. And I think there might be some concessions that Zion and his team are making, but there's also some concessions that the organization is making. And I think at some point you're going to be at a standoff because I think the organization may want more of Zion, and maybe Zion and his team may want more from the organization. And so, look, man, that extension is about to kick in. I would say at the very least that was a good faith part for them. I don't think the Pelicans really had much of a choice, but I also didn't think Zion had much of a choice to not sign it. So he had to sign it. But we're kind
Right,
of getting that
right.
situation where we're going into the off season, and I was so much looking forward to an off season where it's just the Pels. They were in the playoffs, whether they won or lost. They had a lot of things to be proud of, and we're looking forward to next year when they're adding pieces to this dominant core of players. But now we're back into the is Zion happy in New Orleans? Is Gail Benson going to have to sell the team and they're going to move? What's going on with injuries? Is Zion going to be in shape by the start of the season? Is CJ McCollum about to get traded? These are stories that you never want covering your offseason, especially when the draft's coming up. You want to be focused on that and who you're bringing to your team.
Mm-hmm.
You want to hope that you have uh, a solid organization, a solid team. So when we're hitting free agency, then it's, hey man, who are we adding? There's some bigs, or there's some ball handlers, or there's some 3-and-D guys, which I think the latter is a big need for
The emphasis
um,
on three, though.
Pelicans.
Emphasis on three. We need
Emphasis on
shooters.
three. Because Trey can't be the only one on the floor that's it's the National Basketball Association. They're professionals. At some point they realize, well, that's the guy that we just need to make
Yep.
sure doesn't get off from the 3-point. Then the rest of y'all, if you want to shoot 3-pointers, we just need to try to box JV out and get the board
Yep.
essentially. But
Yep.
um but what are you adding to that core? But you don't even know if you have the core yet. So now it's
Yep.
to focus on that. And I think that's a sad thing to be as an organization. You mentioned kind of being in the middle. Um, and the Pelicans, like you said, they have been where they haven't been bad enough to go get a top guy, but they haven't really been good enough to make noise at this time of year in the postseason and kind of have those sustained journeys throughout the postseason and kind of build that character with the team. Like I felt like coming into this year, I was like, I think this year they're going to get maybe 5 or 6 seed. They're going to, probably win their first round series, get the second round series, roughly money. And then next year, we're talking, they about to add something to this. And we're really talking about, hey, they might be Western Conference finalists, getting to the NBA
Right.
Finals. And it's like, well, it's like the process, no pun intended, is kind of starting over. And it's almost
Mm-hmm.
as if the Pelicans, in a way, find themselves being compared to the 76ers, even though I think for me, that's kind of a lazy comparison because if anybody's familiar with the 76ers situation, they wanted to lose on purpose. And, we talk
Yep.
about the games that Joel Embiid missed. A lot of that was they were saying, with you on the court, we're good enough to win games and probably be in the middle of the pack, but we're not good enough to get to that next level. So we need to suck a little bit more so we can get those big guys, those picks to help us get to that next level. And so there were times where Joel Embiid will go on a tear, scoring 30 points a game, and then Joel Embiid is getting shut down for the season. And he didn't see him get
Right.
hurt, didn't hear anything. But it was, and I mean, I don't know, the league allowed it to where
Yep.
the guy was like, yeah, well, we're just trying to lose. Trust the process. And
Right.
everybody's
Trust the
going to look to
process.
that because and guess what? Once they got, Ben Simmons finally came back, was healthy, missed his year for kind of similar reasons. He probably could have came back and played, but why waste your rookie year when we're not trying to win anyway? But they got all their horses they got all their ducks in a row, got some good veteran guys like the JJ Redick, and they were like, okay, let's go. Let's go try to win. Let's go get to the playoffs. And then you started seeing those things happen. And so now you have the 76ers where Joel Embiid, he's not about to play 70 games a year at this point, and you know that. He's going to get about 55, 60 maybe. And the hope is that that could be Zion and even BI to a degree where, He's built the core around them to where they can survive your missing, 20, 30 games in a season, as opposed to you missing 60 and off the
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, where can the Pelicans kind of get to that happy place? And do you think they can get there, or how they might be able to get there?
I think they're gonna run it back one more year. Um, I think you kind of have to,
Mm-hmm.
and give it one more go. What I would really like, and now I don't know that you can find this in free agency, but you kind of need a better version of CJ if you can find him. And I only say that because again, let's assume because there's evidence to suggest it that those guys are going to miss 30, 30 games at some point. Whether and you hope that they don't overlap. You hope they don't miss all 30 at the same time,
Yeah.
like they did this season, where now you have to steady the ship or hold the ship down with a bunch of guys that are essentially 7, 8, 9 year rotation. You need to bring somebody in to where if that were the case next season, you're not leaning on CJ to be your top dog.
Right.
Because again, for 9 years in Portland, that was CJ. I think he's tired of being that. He
Right.
didn't come here to be that. So I think if you have somebody that can be I don't, some people mention Jordan Clarkson, maybe, but he
Mm-hmm.
doesn't defend. He's just like he's kind of a chucker. He can create his own on his own. But again, there's no viable options like that in
Right.
free agency. You can probably trade for that, which a lot of people mention Jalen Brown. And in a nutshell, Jalen Brown would be somebody, or somebody like that would be somebody like that would be who I like on this roster. Because you
Yeah.
can still have him on the roster um, with Zion and beyond. Because I think you can, Zion, you can put him anywhere on the floor,
Right.
and he'll still be successful. You put him in the dunker spot, you can plant him in the corner and let him catch and drive. You can put him at the top of the key and let him create. You can put him at the ISO, the elbow ISO. You can put him on the block, whatever the case may be. But you may not be able to get a top, guy in Jalen Brown's tier, but you have
Yeah.
to get somebody in that mode. Because what I've been telling people is that we don't have anybody who bends the defense at the point of attack. Meaning, you watch Anthony Edwards. If his
Yeah.
jump shot's not falling, you know that he's athletic and he's strong enough to get to the basket and put pressure on the rim at any
Right.
given moment. We don't have anybody who's doing that consistently. Just think of how hard Bi has to work when he's in the game because he's got to
Right.
initiate the play. A lot of times he's your best decision maker on the floor. So now
Right.
he's putting guys in spots. And oh, by the way, I've got to go and get my own basket.
Right.
And then when you take him off the ball, he's got to work so hard to get open to get the ball, then operate. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
if you had somebody that was a threat to to get by his initial defender every single time, and then you pull it, guys have to shade. 'Cause that's what makes Zion, so special. He
Yeah.
does that. He has that. He when I went to the Minnesota game at the first and last time I've ever watched Zion play, it was Minnesota at the Smoothie King Center, and him and Anthony Edwards just going tit for tat. It didn't matter who you threw in front of those guys, except Dyson Daniels defended them pretty well to end the game. Anthony Edwards missed a shot, but they put Jaden McDaniels on Zion. They put Anthony Edwards on Zion. They threw Torian Prince on him. They put Nas Reed on him. They put Rudy Gobert on him. It didn't like he
Didn't
saw
matter.
defenders of every wingspan, size, athleticism, and he was just getting it, going by guys, bullying them. And then Anthony Edwards on the other end, we threw bodies at him, and he was still getting to his spot. You take Zion out of that equation, we don't have anybody who does that. Who now
Right.
everybody's like, yo, we got to get the help a little earlier because he's going to win that matchup most times than not. Bi's going to win this matchup, but he's going to take a little bit harder. He's a little bit more methodical. He doesn't have that force on the point of attack. So I would like for us to find somebody who's like that, or somebody who shoots the crap out of it so much that now if you got him and Trey on the court, your driving lane is a little bit easier for BI to see because now all of a sudden they can't help off those guys that much. Now you create extra driving lanes for CJ. So now BI is better at the point of attack. CJ is better at the point of attack because now you've got two spacers on the floor and guys can't help off them as much. And there's some rim protection because while JV gave us a lot, especially with the double doubles and his defensive rebounding rate was real high. I don't know that the staff or Willie Green in particular JV doesn't fit how Willie wants to play probably, which is push the pace, play the 0.5 basketball, which is move and cut and get off the rock, constant ball screens, surprise ball screens. JV doesn't get up, the ball beats JV up the floor, which you're gonna always beat if you pass the ball up. If you advance the ball will always beat you up the floor. It doesn't matter. But I don't know that they like. I think Willie wants to play small ball a lot more, even with the starting five, and that's not JV. So if you're not gonna play him, then you need to find somebody like a Jared Allen who's good in the ball screen. If you wanna play up to the level and contain guys, if you want to switch and still be able to keep the ball in front, somebody who can provide some real good rim protection. And our small ball lineup struggles rebounding. Yeah. Because at the end of the day, even Larry fully healthy, there's only so much he can do because he's still 6'8", 6'9" on the good day. You need somebody who can rebound outside of his area if you're gonna play small ball. A lot of that falls on our wings too. They've got to do better at rebounding as well. But in the perfect world, I have somebody who can win his matchup at the point of attack and bend the defense, which is Zion if he can stay healthy. Somebody who can really shoot the cover off the ball, maybe bring in like somebody like Buddy Hield, or Kevin Huerter type over there at Sacramento, because Kevin Huerter brings that and he can defend. Or somebody who provides some real good rim protection and can play in the small ball lineup where you're switching out and keeping guards in front. You have somebody that's going to secure the glass, deter shots. That way, if those guys are missing considerable time, you can still stay afloat because you got guys who provide a skill that's up there. Think about it, Trey. We've got a lot of guys outside of Trey. We got Herb and Najee kind of do the same things. Yeah. You bring in Josh Richardson. He does kind of the same things that Najee and Herb does. You know what I'm saying? That's why Trey's leap. That's why Trey's growth has been so important. Because now at least you don't have like Trey's not with those guys in that they just do a lot of small things real well. Trey does one thing really well, which is shoot, and then all of a sudden he started putting the ball on the floor, and that started looking. You can kind of see it. So we got a lot of guys who do some of the same things. You got to start bringing in guys who have like, Trey can shoot it, and he can really shoot it, like 40% every time he steps on the floor. So now somebody has to guard him. Right. Well, like you said earlier, I'm not worried about Herb shooting. I'm not worried about Najee shooting. I'm really not worried about Josh Richardson shooting right now. Not really. We got to worry about Brandon Ingram, and now we only got to shape the Trey. So we can blitz BI because everybody else on the floor except Trey can shoot the basketball. So you've got to bring in some guys who can really, really affect the game and not just kind of copycat each other, if that makes sense.
Right. No, that definitely makes sense. And I think one thing, usually you kind of look to the draft for that. I think if they want to go the draft route, as far as getting some scoring, I like that guy Hawkins from UConn. I think he can shoot the hell out of the ball. But
Cam Whitmore, baby, I'm a big fan of his, dog.
I like Cam Whitmore too.
I don't know that we'll be able to get him, but Cam Whitmore, they're not talking about that dude enough, bro. They are not talking about Cam Whitmore enough. You go watch, he's violent. He is somebody he's Kuminga, but I think he's a little bit more like body type, similar athleticism. I don't know that he's long as Kuminga, but he's similar body type. But when you watch that dude, he's beating his matchup and he's in the paint immediately. Yep. Immediately, dog. I don't know that many people are talking about him enough, and he's not gonna go top 5. And he's got a chance to be good, boy. I'm a big fan of his.
If you don't talk about
Say Trey. Say Trey.
Come and swoop
down.
You hear me? You hear me? Yes, sir. What's up, Calvin?
What up, man? Yeah, I've been listening to y'all for a little bit. I'm gonna just say this real quick because I know I kind of stepped in late or whatever, but y'all are talking about how this off season we don't really know if we have the core, right? I think we have the core. I think the core is Zion, Bi, and Trey. I think Trey has showed you enough in the last 2-3 months of him stepping up that he's ready to be the guy. And I think in his third year, he's going to take a superstar-esque jump, right? I think he can have kind of like Shea, right? Shea was decent, and then all of a sudden he just turned to a superstar. But granted, there's a lot of mouths to feed on this team. And, to Mike's point about JV, Willie doesn't want to play him the way he should be played. And I think JV is pivotal for this team. I tweeted out, I don't think there's more than like 5 centers I'd rather have than JV because his rebounding is just so elite. He could give me 20 if I need 20. I know he can. And I just feel like Willie done him a disservice most of the season. And that's why I've been critical about Willie Green. But, if we want to play small ball, that's completely fine. But, as far as getting the guy, this is why I want to trade, the pick this year. Because CJ at this point in his career is to me like a fourth option. I'm fine with him being a catch and shoot. He could do that. And there's no, but like, you get it. He had to elevate himself because everybody was hurt. And the reason why, the things I heard, we shouldn't trade the pick is because, we just don't know how this team looks. Look, this team has proven to you that the core of Bi and Zion are not going to be on the floor a lot. They've proven that to you. It's been 4 years. We've only got 114 games with these guys, or 114 games with Zion. He's proven you that he's not going to be able to be available. So, in my opinion, you need to go out and you need to go get you another option, a fail-safe rather. When those guys are out, because Zion's going to be out. And even if it gets to the point to where you have to load manage, I hate load managing with a passion. But for a guy like Zion, you just might have to do it. Zion might have to sit every back-to-back. He might have to get on minutes restriction. He just has to. So you need another guy because CJ is not the guy anymore. He was probably never going to be the guy, but he had to elevate himself so that, to keep this team afloat. And much respect to him. And, I'm an emotional tweeter sometimes. I'll get on CJ, deservedly sometimes. I think his decision-making has been extremely poor in a lot of situations. You look at the last
it's situational. Yeah, I agree. I agree.
Yeah, the last play of the game, you look at that play, Jax, he missed a wide open cutting trade. And then he passes out to CJ, or Herb passes out to him, and he passes back out to CJ, and CJ pulls up a floater over 3 people. And Trey's sitting right next to him to his left. And we've been seeing that all year, but I get it. So, thumb injury, shoulder injury, sure, but that doesn't,
the
brain still works. You think. Yeah, the brain still works. And CJ wasn't always a playmaker. Like when he was with Dame, he didn't have to play make. He would just sit there, he'll get his shots. He's a shot creator. That's what he is. And I just don't think that's what we need to have as an option, main option moving forward. But I definitely think really the only people that I want to upgrade, because I do think, let me just say this, I don't think you run it back with this team because we have a lot of great pieces. They say we're deep, but when it got down to it, the role players were role players, and you need to have another option. I think guys like Mikal Bridges, Nicholas Claxton, and DeAndre Ayton are just guys I would definitely try to move for. Mikal is going to play every game. That's what we need. It's like what CJ said. Availability is the best ability. But I think something that, people aren't really looking at, and this is why I say it's time for us to start making some changes. 4 years ago, 3 years ago, if you look at the landscape of things, right? The 2 teams I always like to compare, actually 3 teams I compare myself to, or the Pelicans to, are the Kings, the Grizzlies, and the Thunder. All of us were rebuilding around the same time. The Thunder is kind of rebuilt a year after. Memphis is what? The 2nd seed in the West.
Right.
The Kings are the 3rd seed in the West. And OKC, who had the first pick in the draft last year, without their first pick, just eliminated you from essentially the playoffs. And you're supposed to be 4 years into your rebuild. Easiest rebuild jumpstart ever. You get Bi, who's an all-star talent. You get Lonzo, Josh Hart, all these guys. And then you luck up and get the first pick in the draft for the generational talent since LeBron. And then 4 years down the line, what do we have to show for it? Finishing 13th, 11th, 9th, and the 10th.
Yep. And look, I'm gonna to your point, Cal. For what it's worth, you know, you touched on it. Outside of John Morant being outside, like there's nobody from Memphis missed significant amount of time. I mean, I know John missed games, but Triple J, like we were talking about earlier, a lot of Bi and Zion's injuries overlapped one another. Think about when Zion went down, Bi still wasn't ready to play. So now you have CJ who came here to be a third option because he wanted to play with Bi and Zion. He didn't want to come here and be the man. You have him and JV going up against everybody else's teams with relative health. Same with Sacramento. Sacramento's team was relatively healthy. Fox missed games, a couple games, but those guys weren't missing chunk games. Our biggest problem is our guys, and you said it, are missing chunk games. Think about Phoenix. Phoenix said, "The hell with this. We're not wasting no time. The West is there to be taken because we can all agree everybody had who they thought was going to win the West, but essentially the West was anybody's for the taking up until Phoenix said, "Give us Kevin Durant," and they gutted their roster, and I was of the mind of getting off that pick because the West is there for the taking and our guys are off injured. We need to bring somebody in, and we stood pat at the trade deadline, and it burnt us because Zion's not back. Bi still wasn't fully healthy, but the teams that are at the top benefited from staying relatively healthy through the whole season and not having like if Desmond Bain and Dylan Brooks had to go and win you games, I don't know that Memphis would be as successful as they are. If Harrison Barnes and Kevin Herter had to go and win Sacramento games for about 50, had to play 50 games without Fox and Sabonis, I don't know that they'd be there. But literally Najee Marshall and Jose Alvarado and CJ McCollum and Trae Young had to go and beat Philly on the road, had to go and beat Golden State as they were getting it figured out. Had to go and beat Miami without, Miami had to beat Boston without our top guys. That's not fair for Najee and I do think that I know you probably heard. Yeah, we do need to bring in a fail-safe. We need to bring in somebody that, okay, assuming Bi and Zion, some combination of the two of those guys are going to be hurt for 25 games. I don't want CJ being the lead guy for those games that they're out. I want CJ's role to be catch and shoot first. Then when his bench units come in, then you can go ISO against other teams' bench units. But I don't want you going ISO against other teams' best player because you've not been that dude for a couple of years now. That's not what's gonna get us. That's not what's gonna get us win. So to your point, we benefiting from lack of health while everybody above us benefited from relatively good health. So to your point, and we making the same argument, yeah, we need to bring in a fail-safe to where assuming those guys are gonna miss good amount of games, it's cool because we got was essentially our third option is pretty good when those guys on around. Or if Bi's hurt and Zion, now you still got Bi, whoever you bring in, and CJ's still the third option. Or if Bi's hurt, Zion, whoever we bring in, CJ's still your third option. Not CJ's your lead guy, Najee's your second option, Trey's your third option, and JV's your fourth option. Because that's not. I don't care how you cut it. I don't care how deep you are. Those dudes aren't going to win you. If they got to play 20 games, that team's not going 10-10 when everybody else is healthy. That team's going freaking 5-15, which is what we experienced this season. We had a stretch where Bi wasn't in, Zion had just got hurt, and we had a losing record. You Willie can't do a whole lot when his best guys aren't playing. Mm-hmm. I get it. We talk about his sub patterns and his rotations, but he came into the season not expecting having to play Najee, Herb, and Trey and Jose almost 40 minutes. That wasn't in the plans. When again, this is me speaking from a college coach's perspective. When you go into a season and you have your roster, you're assuming that everybody's going to be healthy. You're saying, and it's a college basketball games are 40 minutes, 20-minute half, 20-minute half. You're putting out everybody on your roster, and you're saying, well, these guys are gonna going to play X amount of minutes a game. So we've got to use the rest of these minutes and allow them to the role guys, the rotational guys, or the guys who not gonna get the line share of the minutes. If you're saying Jose, Najee, Herb, Trey, just those four guys outside of your start and JV and Larry, some common, and you're not allowing those guys more than 20 minutes, 25, 24 minutes, because you know that Zion's gonna play a whole bunch, BI's gonna suck up a bunch of minutes at the two spot, and then the 3 spot, CJ's gonna burn a bunch of minutes. And then that's not even including when you start making subs and you're staggering lineups. Jose's gonna play maybe 25 minutes, if that. But now all of a sudden you go for a stretch of game where these guys were only supposed to play 20, 25 minutes. They're playing 30, 35 minutes, close to 40 minutes. And we're talking 7, 10 games in a row. At some point, those dudes are gonna reach the red line. And that's what we're dealing with. Meanwhile, Kings didn't have to really deal with that. Memphis didn't really have to deal with that. Who else is above us? Because I stopped caring about the standings once the Pelicans went out. For the most part, Oklahoma City didn't have to deal with that. They just were super young. They didn't have to. They didn't miss many games this season. But they just super young and inexperienced, which speaks. That's why a lot of people thought, well, they'll tank. But I'm like, I don't know that Oklahoma City wants to take because those guys are pretty good. Those young boys can play. They're just young. Shea Gildas is young. The Williams boys are young. Right. That's the only issue is that they're super young, but they're not devoid of talent, and they were relatively healthy. Period. So the biggest thing is getting healthy, but I think Calvin is right where we have to get a fail-safe, assuming that dudes won't be playing. And it sucks to say that about your max contract guys, but evidence suggests that. We got too much data to back it up.
You know, I don't know too much about, medical stuff, but, I played, football here at Tech. Just the way that we do things or like the mindset, and I just feel like the training staff, the medical staff, something's not right. I don't know if y'all spoke on it already, but, I just always have to point it out that you got a guy who's missing 4 months with a hamstring strain. Now, whether or not you lied to me or not, because I fully believe he tore the thing and they just either didn't catch it or didn't want to tell us. Didn't want to tell the truth because there's no way a hamstring strain take up 4 months. And it would be out his toe. Something else was going on with that. So, just the way that this team is, the way this organization is, I personally think the Grizzlies, the Suns, the Kings, I all think that they are ran better than us, right? I am very critical of our front office because I think I deserve to be. The Pelicans have been bad for my entire existence, minus when we played the Lakers and we had Chris Paul and them. Other than that, and, our 2018 little playoff run, whatever, other than that, all I've been seen as mediocre. And David Griffin comes in, says, all right, we're not going to be mediocre anymore. We're going to have sustainable success. And we can't even finish over the 9th seed. So, I get it. You have all these role players. They're good role players. It's like you said, they hit the red line. Because my entire thinking when Zion, all these guys were here, is like, whoa, our role players are actually pretty good. And I guess they will look good when you have these guys out here. And then now when you have to play them, they get exposed. And then the film gets out on them. And it was like you sort of say, film don't lie. Film has not lied with the Pelicans this entire year. You crash BI, deny him the ball, and watch them suffer. Because CJ going to play ISO ball and he's hurt. It ain't going to work out. We're going to have a stagnant offense. It doesn't work out. And, I'm critical of everybody. Willie Green, David Griffin, and I think David Griffin has been a used car salesman to us. I think he sold us maybe a Honda with 150,000 miles on it when he's talking about this thing brand new off the lot. Because we're supposed to be good. We were the 1 seed, and that's what makes me more upset about this as a fan.
Yep.
You showed me what we can do. You showed me that we could be a 1 seed, and then you take it from me. It gets ripped away from me. And I'm not even in the realm of even wanting to draft anymore. Because if you say our team is as deep as it is, I don't think you need to add another guy. Because you got guys like Dyson and Kira who are just rotting because we're not playing the guys anyway. Biggest game of the season, and we throw Kira in out there to the Wolves, and he hasn't played all season. And then Willie benches him after he stinks it up a little bit. But it's like, come on now. So, I don't really want to draft. I want to use that pick. Maybe you use that pick, put JV out there, and maybe you get something fantastic. Maybe, hopefully. I don't know. I wouldn't trade CJ. People talking about trading CJ. CJ brings you things that not a lot of guys will bring you, right? And I want him purely for his veteran leadership at this point, you know? I think he definitely has to get in the guy. It's like, you know, what y'all said, y'all have to have an a-hole in the locker room. I definitely think you need to. I think if you had a guy in there who is not afraid to go in there, like a Draymond. If we had Draymond on this team, I think we would have won against OKC. Because at least I think he's going to pull these guys over. He's going to say, look, y'all need to get y'all mind right. I don't even think we would went on a 10-game losing streak with Draymond because he's going to at least put you into a place of accountability. And I feel like we just didn't have a lot of accountability. I feel like we have a lot of kumbaya. It's okay, guys. We're 500. Like, I feel like that's like, I'm not happy about that, coach. I don't care we went 500. We were the one
Vibes,
seed.
Trey.
Yeah, it's vibes. Like all the team is just vibes. Everyone just going out here cooling. We fire Stan Van Gundy, to me, who is a good coach. He knows X's and O's. We fire him because he don't vibe with the team. He's not a cool dude. And now we got Willie, who's the coolest dude ever. He on the sideline brushing his waves. He looking all cool. Got the coolest coach in the league. And these guys like that. These guys want to play for that. So, like, that's why I always, like, tweet out the term that we got a bunch of weenies on the team, right? Because we got a bunch of guys who they all want to be cool and vibe. And, oh, this is friendly family. Like, look, no, this is a business, too. We got to win some games. Like, I don't care about the family-friendly environment to a point. Like, yeah, that's cool, but let's go win some games. And everyone's just sitting here. Nobody's telling Zon anything. I don't think, you know, Larry Ness saying, oh, yeah, we're with him every step of the way. No, if I'm his team, I'm going up to him. Look, man, you can't look me in the eyes and tell me you my teammate and you love me and you want to be out there for me when you sitting here telling me you was perfectly fine to go, but you just not going to do it. And I get it. Mental health, I believe in all that. But there's a point, man, where the most important games of the season, you don't want to come out here with us? I mean, B.I. in his little exit interview said, hey, look, I wanted to be out there with my teammates. That was the best part of the season. I wanted to go out there. I wanted to fight with my brothers. I knew I was still not 100%, but I wanted to go and fight. And, you know, the fact that we only got a guy like CJ and B.I. and Larry Nance, that those are the guys that want to come out here and fight, man, I don't care about how good you are. I don't. Because, honestly, I don't think Memphis has more talent than us. I really don't. Because I think they're a really good coach team. I think they have a lot of guys who want to fight. Dylan Brooks is going to fight for you. Literally, in every sense of the word, he's going to fight. He's going to fight somebody. He's going to fight you. He's going to fight for the team. We don't have guys like that.
Yeah.
Like, Dylan Brooks is cool. I don't want him as like a player, but like if someone like him, sure, we just need someone with some grit, or like the Chauncey Gardner-Johnsons for the Saints. We need guys like that to just raise this energy. I mean, Jose is that guy too. He's a spark plug,
Right?
And obviously he's out too, you know. But I think even with Jose, there's only so much he can do. We've already seen him hit his red line, you know.
Yep.
So, like I said, you know, I don't really want to draft, but I get it. We have great role players, but just the mentality of a lot of this team, I don't like it. That's why I'm like, look, we need to shake it up. It's been 4 years of this. I don't know how much longer I can deal with this, or I don't know what BI is thinking.
He's not going anywhere.
Yeah, BI ain't going nowhere. I get that. But if I'm a player, right, and like we see how hard BI has to work. I hate watching BI have to work so hard off these off-ball screens. He's getting held. He's getting pulled. He's struggling out there to get open. And then he shoots a tough mid and he makes them. Look, I'm cool with the mid-ranges. They're cute. They're cool. And I want that man to take some more threes. I need it. I need it. The only 3 attempt that he took in that last game, he made it. And it was the last second.
It was the one at the end.
It was the one at the end. I said, man.
It should have been an and one.
It should have been an and one. But I'm like, look, if BI could give me that, like you just shoot. Like to me, there's no way Herb should have more 3-point attempts than BI. That's just like the type of thing I'm talking about. The mentality of this team is just a little weird to me. Everybody's just too cool, man. We all just look at Jackson on the sideline, man. Y'all ever watch Jackson Hayes on the sideline? 90% of the game.
I stopped watching him, man.
This man.
I stopped watching. He irritates the hell out of me.
He's just clapping. Anytime, God forbid one of our players get dunked on. Jackson Hayes standing up with the other team. I'll be like, yo, Jack, sit down, bro. Like you. Then he comes in the game. He gets ripped off of he's just sitting there trying to have a conversation with BI in a playing game when he catches the rebound. Then gets ripped and then fouls the dude for an and one. Yeah. I'm like, bro, come on. So like I said, man, we have talent, but I just think because I mean, you know, you've seen it, you know. There's some times where you have guys who have a lot of talent, but you just can't play them. You just can't do anything. You just don't want them on the team anymore because either the mentality, just who they are, it's not cool. And we built this friendly family, whatever, kumbaya type team, but that's just not going to work. I mean, Memphis has developed themselves into this villain role. I mean, you got Job pointing his gun at people, and he's like, you know what? I ain't gonna apologize for that. I'm gonna do it again. I'm gonna go on Instagram Live and point my gun too. I'm not saying we need to have people like that, but at least they know who they are. I don't know who Bi is. I don't know who's Zion, especially Zion. Zion to me is the most enigma person ever. I don't know who he is. I mean, does he even exist outside of basketball? I don't know. The man's so quiet. but like, no, that's just my whole point. You know, you don't need a draft. You have a lot of guys who can give you something and also give you nothing. It's like what you said earlier, you know, you have guys like Herb, Jay Rich, and Najee who all do the same things. I don't think you need 3 versions of Herb Jones on the team. I just don't. You need some variety. I've seen a lot of time. Our rim protecting is terrible. And then, hey, like I said, go try to get you a Claxton. Try to go get you a DeAndre. And DeAndre Ayton's rim protecting is all right. But man, I think he's athletic and good enough to definitely, that could be your 4th option if you needed to be right there. That's your fail safe. Your 3rd option, you know, whatever. That's your fail safe. But yeah, man, that's why I'm saying this team needs to shake up. This team needs a wake up call because I'll even admit that I'm guilty of it. I actually wanted us to lose because I didn't want to see this team in the playoffs. For the whole last week, 2 weeks of the season, I've seen us struggle against a Clippers team without Kawhi. I've seen us lose to the Rockets. I've seen us struggle against teams who are resting their starting guys. I don't want to see us play 4 games of us playing against these people's top guys and then Zion over here saying, I don't really feel like it today. Like, no, I don't need that. I want to lose because this is a failure of a season. And I think if you lose to a team like OKC, who's supposed to be rebuilding or whatever, that puts you on notice. And you have to say, you look in the mirror and say, all right, there needs to be change. If we would have went out there and won, and we went to the play-in, yeah, we are who we think we are. And if we would have went out there and we would have won, we went to the play-in, we would have, we took the first seed or whoever to 5-6 games. Oh my God, we can run it back.
Right.
That would have gave us a false sense of reality. That let's run it back. And then we would have been in the same situation next year. We'd be like, oh my God, what are we doing? So I think you have to make the change now. They showed you what's really happening. Zion being injured was probably the best thing for this team because now you can see where everybody's level is. Najee, Jay Rich, all these guys, they just showed you, hey, we cool when we got the stars on the court, but hey, don't ask us to win the game, man, because I can't do it. I'm incapable of doing it. So go shake the team up. That's my point.
Man, look, I just say this as the outside, and I appreciate y'all as guys that are really vested in Pelicans Nation, kind of being on the show and giving some insight to everything. But man, I think we can all agree. We kind of talked about how to build this team going forward, and I think the Pelicans are at a state where you're not in rebuild mode. That pick or picks, they're not going to do anything for you. Don't turn into the Boston Celtics where you're hoarding picks and you miss out on guys that could really be helping your team achieve what they need to achieve now. The bad part is you have David Griffin. And we talk about that the team is showing, but you talk about the team is showing you who they are. I think David Griffin, even in his tenure in Cleveland, showed us who he was, or at least who he wanted to be. Because who you want to be doesn't matter. It's who LeBron needs you to be. And so for LeBron, it was, I'm trying to win these championships. And drafting players, for me at this point in my career, that's not what's going to get us closer. So these picks, we don't need them. Let's go get some talent in the room. And I think everything he's done since he's been in charge of the Pelicans is saying, well, I want to use these picks to build a core, which is good. To your point, Memphis has been able to do that, and it's worked for them. But their 2 stars have been able to stay healthy. As much of a dog as Dylan Brooks is, if Triple J and Ja on that court, it doesn't matter. They're going lottery picking. That's just the truth of the matter. And so you're seeing Griff kind of have this mindset of, I'm going to keep going to the draft and I'm just going to keep getting guys that can fill roles. But given the situation where your 2 stars aren't playing, and then your 3rd star, so to speak, still has his own injury issues. And I mean, CJ had some injury issues in Portland as well. It just happens throughout the year. You know that's what your reality is. So you're really going to try to do the same old, running back, and that doesn't necessarily mean with those same individuals, but if you're using the same type of individuals all the time, they're going to end up getting the same results anyway. So I think the Pelicans are kind of at a standstill. They're in that middle
In the
where
middle.
they're
Hmm.
Hey,
either
it's
gonna
like when
blow
we
it up
drafted Dyson, man. It's like when we
or they're
drafted
gonna
Dyson. Look, I like the Dyson pick. I did.
yeah,
I really did. Because we needed the thing that we needed at the time was we needed defense, we needed playmaking, and we needed
right.
shooting. Now, it's hard to get a guy who can do all three. We know this, but defense, you can't really teach defense. That's an effort thing, and he got the effort, but he's missing the shooting. And he's missing it badly. He's missing it so badly. He can't make free throws. He can't make layups. He can't shoot threes. And then you got Kara, who's defense, playmaking, and shooting a little bit, but you don't play him. And I think you keep drafting guys that like I'm cool with Dyson, but I'll be cool with Dyson if we would have drafted him maybe year 2 in this whole thing. Dyson's a project. Dyson's probably not going to be fully ready until 2, maybe 3 years from now, maybe towards the end of his rookie deal. Our timeline is a little weird, right? Where are we? Like you said, where
What is
the hell are we? What's the time? Because I'm looking at it, I don't really ever see, other than the CJ move. The CJ move told me, oh, maybe we are trying to win now.
We're trying to get it done ASAP, yeah.
We're trying to get it done ASAP. And then the next trade deadline, you sit on your hands.
Yep.
I'm very confused. And we're in a
we need another CJ move, truthfully.
Yes, we need another and there was a lot of guys. OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet was probably out there, Gary Trent, bro, any of them Toronto boys. Bogdan Bogdanovic, he was there too. I think all those guys have improved this team greatly. And I hear people say, we need a true point. I think Dyson was drafted to be a true point. Dyson has probably some of the best playmaking ability on this team. But you don't start him because you can't. He's just not there yet.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like maybe if you would have went to go get at the time, a De'Aaron Fox instead of a CJ, it makes me wonder, like, how would this team really look? Because De'Aaron Fox ain't missing games. I mean, neither is CJ, but De'Aaron Fox is also younger in his career. And he can also give you 20, 25, 30 if you need it, and his playmaking is also pretty good, better than CJ's. And I would even say his defense better. I mean, CJ's defense is probably bottom 10 in the league for guards, maybe bottom 5. So, I mean, that's not really saying much. But we're in a very, very, very weird spot. And I think this is a do or die moment. This is a do or die fork in the road for the Pelicans. And I even tweeted after the game, show me who you are, right? And they did show me who you are. We're going to lose to OKC. That's who we are. And now it's definitely show me what you want to be. Go get it. If you want to be good, go get good players. Go make the trades happen. We don't need 15 picks anymore. That was cool whenever we had Derek Favors and Eric Bledsoe and Lonzo. That team was garbage. That was fine. But we have a team that can run with something. And, I think we can't keep trying to get away with what we're doing. That Herb pick and the Trey Murphy pick, those are exceptions, not the rule. You can't just go in late rounds, in the first round, in the 17th pick, and draft a Trey Murphy. We've seen that because we drafted Nickeil Alexander-Walker with the 17th pick, and we've seen how that played out. It wasn't great. And then you go in the second round, you pick up a Herb Jones. You can't pick up a Herb Jones every single year in the second round. If that's the case, everybody would have a Herb Jones in the second round. That's just the truth of the matter. Drafting right now for us is going to be diminishing returns, right? And, it's like what David Griffin says. If you take what David Griffin says at face value, you're being gamed, right? The dude is a professional talker. That's what he is. He knows how to make his words sound nice and all this other stuff. But, I mean, David Griffin says sustainable success. What is success? Is success going 500? Is that what you're cool with? Because this is the first time we went 500 since he's been here, and it's been 4 years. And, it's like what Trey said with how he was at Cleveland. If you look at his tenure in Cleveland, it wasn't that great either. He drafted Anthony Bennett, who's probably one of the biggest busts in NBA history. And the team was just molded based off of what LeBron wanted. And then what happened when LeBron left? It was one of the worst teams ever in the league. So David Griffin never really showed me that he can do anything worthwhile without LeBron. And that's what worries me, because I don't want to sit here next year and be 5 years into Zion's career, and then we're sitting here like, oh, well, the same thing happened, and now the trade rumors are starting and all this. I don't ever want to trade Zion. I don't. I honestly don't. Even if he gets hurt, I don't, because when he is on the floor, unlike a Greg Oden, the man could give you 30 points a game. And even if I'm getting 30 games of Zion 30 points a game, I'm grateful for that. Because let's be real, if Zion even played this whole season, where would we be at? We'll be down there with the Rockets and the Spurs. Let's be honest. So I mean,
why you had to bring my Spurs in that? We were here on purpose. You remember that?
hey, Victor's coming to save y'all. Unless the Pelicans get real lucky, and hey, I'm sorry we had to do it to y'all. We're gonna have to take Vic off your hands, but
Ain't that much luck in the world. Basketball guys don't like New Orleans. He's not a voodoo fan.
Hey,
But
look, we already used up all our luck getting Zion, man. That was the luck. That was it. That's all we had.
That was it.
As is. But man, as we wrap this up, man, I just want to say again, thank y'all for this conversation. I think it's beneficial for me, just kind of tapping in, seeing from a fan's point of view how you felt this team with the expectations coming in, how they fared, and maybe some things that have to be done for the future. Now, no disrespect, but I just say that the Pels need to find a backbone. They need to stand up for something. Stand up straight. What is it going to be? Are you going to be the load managing team, try to make sure you can ease your superstars along? Or are you going to try to run it back with what you have? I mean, there's a team that's based out in Metairie that does enough for that for the city. So I don't know if they want the basketball team to do that as well. But, or are you going to fight, stand up, say, hey, we're actually trying to win. We're trying to bring a championship, and championship expectations, I think, is an even more important thing to bring to the city as far as basketball is concerned. So, as I always in this show, if I offended anybody, or as these guys spoke most of the time, which was great, what I needed, if they offended anybody, it is a good thing. It's an opportunity for us all to learn, and it's an opportunity for you to educate us. All we ask, and I think these two gentlemen would agree, is that you keep it respectful. Peace.